Hello and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Corcentric. Today, Corcentric is examining the unprecedented impact of the coronavirus on commercial fleet operators with an emphasis on the specific disruptions you are facing or will likely face in the near future. The tragic spread of coronavirus has introduced challenging and rapidly developing risks to fleet operators and their businesses. Today, we will review the disruption and risk presently facing fleet management, identify their likely impact on your fleet, and explore the ways that Corcentric can assist you in managing these challenges. Before we begin, a note that today's webinar is brought to you by Corcentric. Corcentric is a leading global provider of source-to-pay, order-to-cash, and fleet solutions, serving the middle market through Fortune 1000 businesses with a combination of strategic advisory, technology, and managed services. For all of our customers, Corcentric solutions are focused on reducing cost and improving working capital. Without question, given the tragic circumstances in which commercial truck fleets, and indeed every business is currently operating in, cost management and working capital are vital concerns that Corcentric is relentlessly focused on for our customers. Our discussion today will follow a basic format. First, we will begin by identifying the top risks facing private and for-hire carrier fleets. In turn, we will then explore the impact of these risks, both current and anticipated. We will then conclude by exploring the ways that Corcentric can help you to navigate, avoid, or otherwise manage those impacts throughout the current coronavirus crisis, and importantly, beyond the crisis. On today's webinar, we are joined by four of the best subject matter experts in the fleet industry to help us understand the risks and disruption facing fleets, the impact that it is having on operations, and the ways that Corcentric can help. I'm pleased to welcome Patrick Gaskins, Corcentric's Senior Vice President of Sales and Operations, who will assist us in understanding the impact of COVID-19 on fleet lifecycle planning, as well as equipment acquisition strategy. Also joining us today is Dale Tower, Vice President of Corcentric's Fleet Remarketing Operations, who will help us to explore the current environment surrounding used equipment resale and used equipment purchasing. We are joined as well by Bill McCouch, Corcentric's Senior Vice President of Procurement Services. Bill will bring us the important perspective of fleet procurement, including critical fleet spend areas such as tires, parts, lubricants, and other maintenance spend categories. And lastly, we were joined by Rob Garcia, Corcentric's Senior Vice President of Supply Management. Without question, the integrity of fleet supply chains and management of supplier relationships is mission critical for fleets at this time. To begin today's discussion, we're confronted with some staggering forecasts for the outlook of the U.S. and global economy. We are in a period where circumstances and outlooks are seeing monumental shifts by the day and even by the hour. Based on the most recent information available, historic economic damage will be realized in the second quarter of 2020, with U.S. GDP forecast to contract by between 12 and 24%. To put this in context, in the past 70 years, we have never had a quarter contract by 12%, let alone 24%. During the worst quarter of the 2008-2009 downturn, the contraction was only about 4%. Encouragingly, most are expecting that the contraction will be confined to the second quarter, and overall, the U.S. economy will begin recovering lost ground in the third and fourth quarters. As remarkable as it may seem at this point, 2020 overall forecasts range from contraction of 3% to modest 1% growth. By this perspective, 2020 will likely be a down year, but the net downturn may only be equivalent to the 2008 financial crisis. The forecast for Eurozone countries is very similar to the US. China, on the other hand, is expected to have borne the brunt of the economic impact during the first, rather than the current quarter, and indeed we are seeing indications that Chinese manufacturing is quickly ramping back up, in line with apparent success in containing further spread of the coronavirus. Turning to fleet, the past month has seen a flurry of headlines describing fast-moving, complex developments that affect every aspect of the fleet lifecycle. Many operators in the for-hire category, already experiencing cost and profitability pressures, are facing renewed concern over business solvency, and for them, survival itself is in question during the months ahead. Fleet operators are now faced with incredible disruption in their plans for equipment acquisition, as most OEMs have completely stopped truck and trailer production, and manufacturing of many truck and trailer components has also been throttled or suspended. On the aftermarket front, many of the major tire, parts, and lubricants manufacturers are idling plants, but most dealer and distributor networks remain operational. On the back end of the fleet life cycle, the used equipment market is poised for exceptional volatility in resale value and equipment availability. To make sense of this environment, let's turn our perspective to that of specific risk categories and examine the fleet life cycle through that lens. Corcentric is viewing the coronavirus impact on fleet through three risk categories. First, we see risk stemming from cost management. While for-hire carriers faced the greatest risk from a cost perspective, private fleets are not spared, as many will see their core businesses suffer significant setbacks in profitability during the months ahead. Corcentric sees cost-related risk impacting fleets in three ways: non-optimal equipment finance decisions, high costs associated with maintenance-related procurement, and a volatile resale market that may cause buyers to overpay and sellers to not maximize their residual value. Second, Corcentric sees risk threatening the effective management of fleet assets in operation. Specifically, there is great risk right now with fleet operators not adjusting their plans for equipment acquisition to accommodate today's business environment, as well as the environment ahead. Effective asset management is also at risk from uncontrolled, off-contract procurement of fleet maintenance items, such as tires and parts, compounded by manual procurement processes that are difficult or impossible in light of office closures, social distancing, and mandatory shelter-in-place orders. Third and finally, Corcentric sees risk impacting effective supplier management, whether it be aftermarket tires, parts, lubricants, or any other fleet supplier category. The current environment is obstructing sourcing activities, threatening availability of product, and interrupting billing processes necessary to do business with suppliers. Let's turn first to the risks that Corcentric sees surrounding cost management. Cost is always top of mind for fleet operators, but the coronavirus crisis is presenting us with unique impacts. Spot market rates saw a surge in the past few weeks associated with consumer product freight demand. But after that initial demand wanes, spot freight rates are likely to decline, presenting renewed pressure to contain cost. On the positive side, number two diesel cost is down almost 13% on the year, providing modest relief on cost per mile. On the resale front, most believe used equipment prices are heading lower, frustrating equipment owners with a higher total cost of ownership. And we cannot ignore private fleet operators, such as those in food service distribution, where industry-specific cost pressures are likely to be extreme given dramatic downturns in their core businesses. So let's bring in our experts to discuss cost. Pat, I'll first turn to you. What kind of challenges do you see right now in planning and managing fleet lifecycle from a total cost of ownership perspective?
Well, first and foremost, thank you very much for hosting us today. With regards to total cost of ownership, there are two major components that are evaluated in that equation: fixed and variable costs. Okay, variable costs are directly related to the utilization of assets, moving freight from point A to point B. The fixed costs, fixed financing costs of assets through either internal cash or outside financing sources, those are constant. Okay, they don't vary with the utilization of the asset. So you mentioned earlier with regards to optimal financing programs and whatnot. And at this point in time, fleets really truly have to evaluate how their equipment is financed, be it through internal cash or other means, and make a determination as to how do I mitigate some of those fixed costs. The variable costs, they'll pretty much take care of themselves based upon asset utilization. You did mention fuel. That's the silver lining out there from a variable cost perspective. That's a phenomenal boost for fleets because that's the number one operating cost in any fleet operation is the cost of fuel. So as we go through the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about how to squeeze dollars out of fleet assets to help us through the here and now and make us stronger on the backside of this overall environment that we're contending with today.
Great, thanks, Pat. And Dale, turning to the end of the equipment life cycle, are fleets at risk right now of buying or selling used equipment at the quote wrong price?
Absolutely. Probably more than I've ever seen it in my career. 2019, we had a steady building inventory of used equipment, where it increased almost 85% over the same period of times in 2018. During that time, the demand stayed around the same. And so pricing started to significantly drop around the middle of last year and continued into the first quarter. And now, with where we're at with the virus and the impact on every industry, it's become a big buyer's market, and there's a bigger surplus of equipment. And so prices have been dropping tremendously. And certainly if you're out shopping and don't know that it's a buyer's market, then you could certainly end up overpaying. On the other hand, if you are selling, the biggest mistake you could make right now, as pricing is dropping so significantly, is not know what you're doing and price too high. And then your equipment stagnates as the pricing continues to hit the basement.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks, Dale. I'm also curious about the issue of costs when it comes to fleet procurement in this environment. And for that, Bill, I'll turn to you. With some OEM and aftermarket manufacturing being disrupted, are fleets at risk of higher costs? And related to that, do you think that fleet procurement costs will rise due to off-contract purchasing?
Well, thanks, Will. We'll cover a lot presentation. Well, first off, if a company is on local books, meaning dealers are billing you directly outside of a national program, yes, you could be paying more. With Corcentric, however, once enrolled in a program, you're under a national agreement where the contracted price is in place. This contracted price is supported nationwide as well as in Canada. Regarding the second part of that question, sure, off-contract buying will increase cost, oftentimes in areas not normally considered, which is what we call the cost of acquisition. So things like processing, terms and conditions, system setup, W-9s, tax docs, as well, not to mention disparate and market pricing.
Great perspective. Thanks, Bill. I'm wondering about the broader question of how fleet suppliers in general might react to this coronavirus environment. And for that, Rob, I'd like to welcome you into the discussion here. How could we expect fleet suppliers to change pricing and payment terms in the weeks and months ahead?
Well, thank you, Will. And yeah, it's certainly a question that everyone has on their mind. The greatest challenge right now really is what is the duration going to be of this major disruption? And that's really what has everyone concerned. Every phase of this business, how we interact with one another, everything is really stemming on that duration question, which some speculation is 1 quarter, others are saying 2, and some are saying throughout the rest of the year, with the ramp up after the effects to take much longer than the initial downturn. So it is a real challenge. What we're doing as an organization is we've approached our top 10 suppliers, which represent literally hundreds of millions of dollars of transactions in our portfolio. And we're working with their management teams to address every aspect of our engagement with our customers, with the industry. And we're going to work on determining how we can mitigate as many cash flow related or liquidity related disruptions as we possibly can with them. So some of that would be pricing, some of that may be payment terms, and many other ways as well. There's some creative things that some customers are doing currently that we are engaging with to understand with regards to specific customers that their own customers that they're engaging with, meaning partial payments and things like that. So, but today, a lot of this is just becoming reality as far as the impacts. So today we have our programs in place. They are competitively priced. strongly recommend that any fleets out there who are not engaged in the national program with us to be engaged with us, because as we do move forward, and should there be any rationing of product and things like that into the near future, should this recovery take a little longer than anticipated, obviously the largest customers will take advantage of that rationing of products and things. And so the best opportunity you have is to be part of a larger group and take advantage of any of these concessions that may become available.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Well, certainly no shortage of cost-related risk impacting fleet across the life cycle. With that, I'd like to discuss how Corcentric can solve these problems. And again, I'll turn to Pat, you first, if we could. Pat, if a fleet were concerned about planning and executing a life cycle strategy in this environment, how would Corcentric serve that customer?
So it's a great question. You know, in the here and now, life cycle strategies are long-term views of how we're going to manage our equipment life cycles and costs and for multi-year programs. Okay, to try and rely on today's environment and the data that is coming to us from the here and now to execute on a, if you will, new life cycle plan is probably not necessarily the best option out there. All right. This is a course corrector. All right. This is where, the fleets that have a plan in place or need to put a plan in place, you need to sort of look at it over a multi-year program and say, in the here and now, what do I need to do to contend with the outside market influencers? All right. We have a proprietary program that does just that, which is our sweet spot analysis tool. All right. The tool brings in all of the market influencers, fuel economy, current interest rates, which are at an absolute record low. But that being said, there's so much risk in the marketplace. Our banking institutions are starting to bake in that risk factor. So we're not seeing as much downward pressure on rates as we would expect, based upon current swap rates and whatnot. So the nice part about this tool is that we can take all those sort of influencers, put them all into one program and make a determination as to, in the here and now, how can we sort of help mitigate cost. Once we've determined sort of from a minor course correction in the here and now, what specific assets in the fleet are underperformers, okay? And make a determination, if I need to contract my fleet size, what is, the optimum asset to dispose of, okay? To Dale's point earlier, we work very closely with our remarketing team to make sure that our fleet customers are protected when it comes to the resale of the asset. They're not, Dale mentioned overpricing, underpricing, to market. We make sure that we take all of that into account and provide them with a data-driven, all right, executable plan, all right. So, one of the things that it helps in the here and now, in the current environment, if a fleet doesn't have in place a sort of a holistic approach to managing asset life cycles, we are offering in the marketplace right now what we call a sale and leaseback program. It allows fleets that need to access valuable cash that is tied up in fleet equipment to sell equipment. We can price the equipment based upon the financing structure and continued life of the asset to not necessarily today's market prices, but to a historic market price. So you're not losing in the resale market. All right, but you're implementing a fleet plan, grabbing or monetizing cash out of the fleet. So now you have that dry powder to carry you through the next, 6, maybe even 9 months worth of downturn and then uptick. All right, so we've got a lot of tools at our disposal, and we're really working closely with fleets to give them a plan to get through this world epidemic. So.
Great, thanks, Pat. And just to be clear, you mentioned that that's the purchase leaseback program.
Yeah, from a client's perspective, they're selling the equipment, sale and leaseback. From our perspective, it's a purchase and leaseback. All right, so it's just two different ways of saying the same exact thing.
All right, thanks, Pat. Well, you referred to it as tentatively a minor course correction, so hopefully that's what it ends up being. So thanks, Pat. Dale, I want to turn to you if I could. Looking at the end of the equipment life cycle, a fleet's total cost of ownership question is never really fully answered until they effectively dispose of the equipment. So with that, how does Corcentric working with customers who have trucks for resale in today's market?
Okay. Again, a super over-inventoried market. And in those times, it's important to use all the resources possible in working with partners who have the most experience in the business and have the pulse on the current market. Again, it is a buyer's market. And as with any buyer, whether it's you, me, or anyone in transportation, they're looking for a piece of equipment with the best specifications, that's in the best condition, has the lowest miles, it's the cleanest possible equipment at the best price, and it's most convenient to you. And a couple of those items you really can't do anything about depending on how you've operated your fleet. How you bought the equipment 5 years ago is the specifications that's going to be on it, and you're going to have to sell with those specifications. The lowest miles, again, if you've run higher miles, you can't make it have lower miles, and you'll have to sell with the miles that's on that equipment. But the other items, actually, you can have good control of and make a big impact. So we would work with our accounts to make sure that the condition is minimally in what's called industry trade terms, and that functionally everything in the truck works and there's no damage on it, etc. Clean, absolutely. You can spend some money and get the equipment detailed and make it look nice for someone that's potentially living in the truck, like someone that has a sleeper bunk. Price, again, you have to have a pulse on the market. So you have to be at the point where you're going to get phone calls and have the opportunity for activity. And most convenient, yes, you can. And in fact, we do that now. We offer free delivery anywhere in the continental U.S. If you want to buy one of our trucks, one of our owned pieces of equipment. Beyond that, the thing that we work with in normal times right now, we're more encouraging them to move quickly because the pricing has been dropping so quick. But we work with them to still try to achieve their timing goals in selling the fleet, and so we'll work with them in the appropriate channel. They need to get rid of it immediately. We may work through absolute auction, maybe online auction, with a reserve possibly for protection. Then we may move trucks to different parts of the country where we find them to be a hotter market for a certain type of equipment. And again, when you talk about resources, we have a lot more than the average used truck organization out there, or even some of the larger ones. We have our own websites, AmeriquestUsedTrucks.com, NationalLeaseUsedTrucks.com. That's exclusive to us, and we actually get over a third of all of our activity off of those owned websites. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Dale. I'd like to shift gears back just to the question of cost risk within fleet procurement. So really the middle of the fleet life cycle while the equipment's in operation. So Bill, let's say that I'm a fleet and I'm trying to work to uncover cost savings, or really just to minimize the risk of supply disruption impacting my fleet operations. So what can Corcentric do in a situation like this for fleets that are looking for supply chain integrity, as well as just general cost savings in their fleet procurement?
Well, there's several things to cover here. Simply said, engage and participate. And I say that because with Corcentric, there is a risk-free enrollment with no minimum purchase requirements. You have access to pre-negotiated pricing and supplier contracts, along with the economies of scale awarded to an organization that has hundreds of thousands of trucks within our buying communities. Service level agreements, consistent and nationwide pricing, managed payment terms, the maintenance of executive level and local level relationships, and then ongoing renegotiations with the suppliers to continue to supply advantageous pricing for our customers. Regarding supply disruption, I'm just going to toggle off what Rob said earlier. Yes, there have been reports of rolling shutdowns, et cetera. However, since Corcentric is one of the largest volume aggregators, our presence is at the senior executive level. As such, we do have ongoing and intimate knowledge of inventory levels, and they're pretty strong. And at this time, we don't anticipate any supply disruption in the fleet maintenance arena.
Well, I think we'll take.
I would like to add some to what Bill is, what Bill's referencing to as well. By design, essentially Corcentric, we engage multiple suppliers in each category of supply, and that is really by design. Corcentric's been in operation for multiple decades now. We've been through some very difficult economic swings, and we've realized that having multiple suppliers in each category really allows you to offset or mitigate that disruption that can occur with an individual supplier. So that is truly one very significant benefit in these times.
All right. Well, Bill and Rob, thank you very much. Bill, if I could just take a follow-up question here real quick. You referred to what Corcentric does in fleet procurement as a volume aggregator function there. How many fleets are you working with as far as serving them with fleet procurement programs at this point?
Yeah, well, very good question. We work with a very diversified group of companies that essentially cover all aspects of industries. So vocations such as utilities, constructions, short haul carriers, long haul carriers, reefers, you name it. The vocations are very vast. In total, we have somewhere in the area of 1,700 fleets. We also combine the buying power of national lease, which is a substantial amount of business that we do there. So, in total, about 1,900 fleets. I would say somewhere in the area of about 800,000 trucks are within our buying communities.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Thanks, Bill. Well, overall, cost risk is definitely going to be top of mind for fleets in the weeks and months ahead. It certainly sounds like fleets can find answers across the fleet lifecycle with Corcentric. So thank you for all that information. Let's now turn our attention away from cost and let's have a look at the risks that fleets are facing in managing their equipment assets. So the actual logistics surrounding the management of your equipment in operation. So it goes without saying that fleet asset management has become problematic due to workplace closures and severe travel restrictions. It's staggering to say this, but at least 225 million Americans are currently under a lockdown. Fleet managers face unprecedented disruption to their plans for equipment acquisition and disposal from a sheer logistical perspective, with Class 8 production collapsing and used equipment potentially being difficult to move between seller and buyer. Logistical disruption to fleet procurement processes risk interfering with supply chains for critical parts, tires, and other maintenance needs. For example, fleets with paper-based invoicing or payments will be hard-pressed to manage billing if staff can't go to the office to handle invoices and checks. So with that, Pat, first I'll turn back to you looking at the life cycle in general. With folks that are trying to manage the fleet life cycle, literally from the kitchen table or from home, what are the risks surrounding bad decision making or uninformed decision making when it comes to planning and acquiring the right equipment during this time?
It's a phenomenal question, Will. It's one that, in this tech-enabled world, we have really sort of latched on to technology as our go-to in all aspects of our business. In the Capital Equipment Solutions Group, when it comes to assets, optimization, everything is web-based and tech-enabled. All right, so that asset manager that is working with us, either currently or looking to work with us on an asset management and asset optimization program, all of it can be done via the web. All right, all of it is warehoused in the cloud. You can look at the performance through our program of each and every asset in your fleet on a holistic perspective. All right, so you can determine fuel economy, which is thrown off of the asset through the onboard computing and telematics. All right, the ELD requirements on heavy trucks went into place this past year, and so all Class 8 equipment is required to have it. Again, we can tap directly into the truck and determine exactly what's going on with its utilization, its fuel economy, and if it's having any issues. All right, with regards to maintenance and repair data and really sort of determining what is my spend on a particular unit, and do I want to either park it, fix it, or dispose of it because of cost. Again, if the fleet hasn't already invested in a data warehouse, a maintenance data warehouse, it's something that needs to be evaluated in the here and now. Okay, the cost of entry on a per unit basis is fairly minimal, and there are many programs in the marketplace. But again, web-based, where we can access that data directly from our clients' data warehouses. So again, the person managing the fleet from the kitchen table, now is really the time to evaluate every single aspect of the business to really determine where are the blind spots. All right, where do I am I missing visibility remotely on asset cost, utilization, routing, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, in this economy, the restaurants, they've all shut down. The consumption in the marketplace from that perspective has gone away. That being said, the entire United States is still eating. All right, so the routing of products in the marketplace has just changed. Okay, so as the fleet manager, how do I contend with that? If I'm a food and beverage distributor, where are my trucks now more optimally routed? Okay, it's not to the restaurant, it's maybe to the gas and sip or to the grocer. Okay, so those things can all be ascertained by visibility into the data that the assets are throwing off. And the nice part about our program is we're a partner that really sort of tries to tap our client on the shoulder and tell them exactly what we see and what we think that they should do to reduce cost and increase margin in this challenging environment. So that's our program, Will.
Okay, well, thanks, Pat. Dale, I want to turn back to you now. Obviously, like we've said, any life cycle strategy requires the ability to do something with your equipment when you're done with it, so the fleet has the right asset at the right time to get the job done. So what are the challenges facing fleet managers? I mean, folks literally trying to manage their resale picture that are working from home, that have to decide when and how to buy or sell their used equipment? What are the challenges facing that fleet manager in that sense?
Everyone has to do what they have to do. And of course, you embrace all the technology you can to accommodate your folks working from their homes. And everyone's doing that, for every type of industry or business, with the exception of the folks that are still in food and medical and service stations and the essential ends of the economy. But part of that is pulling all of your resources and finding, on the sales side, pulling as much resources as possible in advertising, and really doing your homework to see where you get the biggest bang for your buck. And then, of course, you have to have the ability to respond to those phone calls and those email inquiries, and ability to be informative and to sell and to get them sold still. When you have the equipment on your lot, it's tough to do it without a physical presence. And at some point in the process, there's going to have to be a physical presence. Someone's got to hand somebody the keys and so on. And you have to have all your resources set up with your financial side of it for potential folks that need financing, or to be able to receive wires for payment, and so on. But transportation, there's no doubt about it. Everyone's read it. Everyone's seen it on the news. It's a essential piece of the of this current situation we're in. Transportation is a must, and the obvious things are obvious, but there's other things that are not as obvious, and people still need to have products moved and to be transported. So we are still mandating a physical presence in some areas. I mean, we just sold 130 pieces of refrigerated equipment to move food here in the past few days. And so, you have to do what you have to do. On the, sales side, again, you have to use all of your resources, and where you wouldn't need the physical presence because you've pushed it somewhere else at the auction, or working with remarketers, brokers, and exporters, and so on. You get extra assistance to push the business.
I see. Well, thanks, Dale. Safe to say that we're definitely working in a tough environment, when it comes to the used equipment market there. So thank you for that perspective. Bill, I want to turn back to you if I could. Just wondering about the disruption facing fleet procurement processes. Everything that goes into, the actual purchase of, a tire, a part, lubricant supply. So, what kind of situation are procurement managers and accounting folks facing, when they're dealing with folks out in the field that are purchasing parts, tires, and other maintenance items? Are they likely to have trouble with purchasing compliance, managing purchase orders, managing billing invoices, or even just having the access to the credit with their suppliers to buy what they need?
Yeah, excellent question. I'm also going to tap into the technology piece that Pat had mentioned earlier. The good news is procurement managers can do their jobs remotely if they have access to information and the resources to complete the tasks at hand. The second part of the good news is that tire dealers, service shops, technicians are all considered essential parts of society. Therefore, the good news, the infrastructure is in place to get things done. What's important is access to immediate information. With the Corcentric platform, all of our programs, including a 24/7, 365 road service program, all that information is housed into our central repository known as our buyer's guide. This buyer's guide is maintained in real time, and we have full-time content managers making sure that information is as up to date as we receive it. But within the buyer's guide, you're going to find up-to-date information on COVID-19, the effects that COVID is having on every one of the manufacturers, the plants, any shutdowns, anything like that. You also find the goods and services that are available, linkages to dealer networks, their hours of operation, maps, are they open, are they closed, and this is for the U.S. and Canada. So I highly encourage our customers to use the resource that's available to them 24/7, 365, anywhere you are. So, well, regarding the second part of the question, are they likely to have trouble with compliance, invoicing, credit, all that other stuff? If you're outside of our program, outside of Corcentric, yes. If you're within Corcentric, no. Because under our model, once you're enrolled in a program, your company is identified as a member of the Corcentric group purchasing community. So simply the name of your company and the location that you're running out of is enough as we link the company's name to our platform. Even as much as customer-specific business rules are configured, like PO sequencing, which is used to align the proper bill-to information. So you're going to lose all that if you're outside of our program. And then finally, your credit is established with Corcentric, which is a very, very important part of our platform. So combined with seamless invoice processing, spend reporting tools, yeah, I truly believe you can run your operations remotely.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Well, I'm definitely hearing all around that asset management really is at high risk of disruption right now, and the consequences for fleets could be quite damaging. So, we've touched on it a little bit here. So let's turn our minds to, the question of how do we truly solve these problems here at Corcentric. And for that, Pat, I'd like to turn back to you. And I think we have touched on this, but I just want to be perfectly clear, kind of connecting the problems and the challenges that we've identified with what specifically we're able to do. So, what can Corcentric's capital equipment solutions teams do for the fleet manager working from the kitchen table at home? How can we help that person make rational decisions about fleet lifecycle during the coronavirus crisis?
So, Will, great question. So our process in doing sort of that deep dive analysis of all fleet assets, it's really a four-step process. We gather all of the data sets that we've talked about in this call, and we put them into our business analytics tools, then into our sweet spot analysis tool, which I touched on earlier, which gives us sort of an asset lifecycle overview. And then we really truly get tactical, all right? And that's what, when we go into what we call run cost analysis. And that is evaluating every nickel that's spent on every single asset in the fleet and making a determination of, does it make sense to replace that asset in today's current environment, taking into consideration, what Dale has touched on in the used truck market, taking into consideration, the sort of turbulent financial markets. It also considers access to new equipment. Okay, when am I going to be able to bring new equipment online? All right. But I think really what organizations, not necessarily just the fleet departments of businesses, what they're looking for in the here and now is disposable cash. All right. Now is a point in time where people that are seeing major disruptions in their business, and they feel that cash is going to be what carries the day. All right. That's where our sale and leaseback, purchase and leaseback program will allow them to monetize their fleet immediately. All right. And give them that dry powder that they need to survive to the backside of this program. It allows them to, as I mentioned previously, defleet, all right? They get rid of underutilized assets, and that's where our run cost analysis will point out each and every piece of equipment that needs to be disposed of. All right. So it's like I said earlier. Evaluate everything. Where are my blind spots? How do I take advantage of programs that Corcentric has to offer to gain access to cash, reduce costs, okay, and come out on the backside of this stronger than I went in.
Come out stronger than when you went in. I think that's how we tend to look at any challenge in life. So thanks for that, Pat. Dale, kind of again on the remarketing side. Pat mentioned how disposable cash and monetizing assets, how critical that is right now. So obviously disposing of your asset when you're done with it is a way to liberate cash that's sitting in equipment that you might want to dispose of in this environment. So the folks that are, again, the folks that are working from the kitchen table, working from their working from their kids' playroom at this point, trying to manage their used equipment, the resale of their used equipment. What specifically can we do to help that person that's working from home, that isn't able to go into the office right now, to identify what to sell and literally handle the logistics surrounding the sale of that used equipment?
Okay. That can be anywhere from a pretty simple answer to more complex that may, take more thought and take a look at where you may want to be a little more opportunistic. So, I mean, if you had just replaced 50 tractors and the new equipment just came in, and now you've got 50 used vehicles sitting there while all this happened, the decision's pretty easy, and you need to move very quickly, and you need to make all those good decisions we talked about and use all those good resources, from the advertising to how you clean them up and move them around, et cetera. This could become more difficult with some of the fleets that have suffered some loss of their business or had to close down certain portions of it. Then you really need to think it through. I mean, nobody wants idle assets that cost combined tractor, trailer, refrigeration up to $200,000, $225,000. You don't want a lot of those sitting for any period of time. So you have to make certainly a guesstimate of when this thing is going to be over. Kind of a guesstimate also how fast your business will return, and in some cases even how fast you can recover drivers that have been furloughed and things like that.
Great, thanks, Dale. Sounds encouraging. Certainly, your perspective sounds very, very informed on this situation. So, thanks for that perspective. Bill, I'm hearing the fleets, have options kind of at the front end of the fleet life cycle, as Pat touched on, as well as on the back end of the life cycle and the disposal of equipment. So, how about managing procurement for equipment that fleets have in use? What specifically can Corcentric do to help with things like compliance, like we touched on, or managing their billing invoices, accessing credit with their key suppliers, and even getting flexible payment terms right now that they need to weather this crisis? What are we able to do for that sort of a customer?
Well, with regards to compliance and managing billing and so forth, with our platform, you have compliance. Since the programs are typically agreed upon at the company's corporate level, and we block competing programs from the buyer's guide view, you can be assured that whoever is buying is complying with what your corporate entity has approved. Also, regarding managing billing, since all the invoices are mapped according to a company's business rules, folks working remotely, working from home, etc., can interact with electronic transmission of invoicing instead of paper. So, invoice approvals, disputes, Even payment processing is all done online, no touch. Regarding credit, trying times right now. With regards to things that are, let's say, flexible payment terms, our terms are net 30. We are requesting that our customers contact us if there are situations that would require them to be outside of those payment terms. Plus, we have other ways of securing debt. But communication would be key here, Will, and that would be direct communication with our credit department.
Great, thanks, Bill. I did, before we move forward, want to circle back on something, Bill, that you had mentioned earlier about the Corcentric Buyer's Guide and the visibility that sounds like that's giving fleet buyers into what's going on across the fleet supplier world, so to speak. So, can you clarify exactly what we're doing to help fleets understand kind of the state of affairs in real time with each of our kind of key suppliers and tires, parts, and other areas? How are we informing buyers about what's going on with each of them?
Sure, multiple ways. One, we have a newsletter, and obviously that goes out every 2 weeks, but that's not fast enough in today's day and age. So we are sending additional emails for folks that have requested to be on our email exchange servers and receive marketing materials. We're sending emails as we get them out to customers. We direct them to the Buyer's Guide because, again, with 160 different suppliers, you need to have some order to all of that. And so we update the information on the Buyer's Guide, right on the landing page, as to what the situation is or is not with a supplier, whether it's a disruption in in product, which again we're not seeing that as of yet, but anything with regards to plant closures, decontamination, or anything that may be going on, that would be our central repository, which is again, it's real time. Also, since we have an entire sales force that is working from home, everyone is doing their best to stay in contact with their customers. Now, obviously, with 15, 16, 1,700 customers, a little bit challenging to do unless you have more of a broad-based way of communicating, especially when you have about 10,000 ship-to locations. So, that's really the end buyers at those 10,000 locations. However, with the sales force all working from home, they have their call routine, so they're actually reaching out, dialing the phone, and calling their customers and informing them of situations that may pertain specifically to the product lines that they're in.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Well, definitely sounds like Corcentric can help overcome many of the logistical challenges that are impacting fleet lifecycle management, and truly, no doubt, many fleets out there are experiencing a lot of pain trying to manage their equipment from home. So with that, we've discussed two of the three risk categories that we identified earlier: cost risk management and asset risk management. Let's move on now to our third and final area of fleet that's facing risk and disruption, and that's actually supplier management itself. We're still in the early days of understanding the risk surrounding supply chain disruption, but indications are that several fleet critical categories are at high risk of disruption, be it from raw material shortages to manufacturing lines being shut down, or to excessive demand or logistical challenges moving goods to point of sale. Through the end of February alone, the number of suppliers falling back on force majeure declarations in their customer contracts rose 44%. And without a doubt, that moved exceptionally higher during the last 4 weeks. Ultimately, the risk here is one of product availability to keep your fleet on the road. But it does go beyond that, as fleet managers are likely having difficulty conducting sourcing the way that they normally would. And on the supplier end, their staffs are also facing challenges managing customer relationships from their kitchen tables. This suggests that fleets may find disruption in conducting their transactions with those suppliers, staying on top of billing, and obtaining the flexible payment terms needed during this downturn. And Rob, I'd like to turn back to you and bring you back in here at this point. As a sourcing professional with a specialty in fleet, what kind of risks and disruption are you seeing that fleet sourcing managers are likely encountering, or what are they likely to encounter in the near future?
Yeah, and great question and multifaceted question. And so I'll start with kind of breaking it down into three areas and sort of summarize in those three areas. We'll start with supply. It's an ironic thing that the 24 months of tariff challenges that we've had is actually going to be a benefit to this environment because of the fact that majority of suppliers have increased their inventory levels above what they would consider average levels. And they were taking advantage of pre-buying essentially and trying to time the implementation of tariffs over the last 24 months. So for the most part, in speaking with suppliers, and as Bill had mentioned, we have corporate relationships. They have informed us in the critical areas that the availability of inventory is in place, and that's pretty much focused on finished product. The risks are in perishable products and products requiring some type of assembly, essentially. Those are really the risk areas. And perishable, not necessarily meaning food product, but manufactured product that must be used in a short period of time. Any type of product that has some kind of perishable element to it. Those are sort of the risk side of the inventory model, but for the most part, in summary, it appears that inventory is in place today and should carry us probably through a quarter is what the estimation is. Beyond that, it's difficult to speculate at this point. As we all know that for the most part, every manufacturer or really any business with pools of workers have adopted measures of virus containment of some kind, which means that we have had plant shutdowns, and those are really on a week-by-week basis. So as the federal government puts out mandates, roughly the manufacturers are following those mandates, and they continue to extend on a weekly basis. So for the most part, for instance, in our industry, most of the OE plants and major manufacturers of aftermarket parts essentially have either slowed or shut down manufacturing through the middle of April at this point, and some are late April, sort of following, again, the rough guidelines of the federal government. So future-wise, what is that effect going to be on supply? Well, that just, again, is back to the duration question, which really at this point is really speculation. I'll switch over now to the demand side. As mentioned in this presentation, and as everyone has surely been informed, there have been very significant categories of industries that have either completely shut down or operating in a very minor basis. And so that has freed up a tremendous amount of resources for the industries that are, in fact, not only operating at full capacity, but even beyond full capacity. So again, from the supply side, that lack of demand in some of those industries is actually helping that supply side and should carry us near term. And then the third thing is challenge. What is the biggest challenge? Well, it's right sizing your operations today, at least for the near quarter, because every description of the near quarter, the second quarter, is ugly. That's the only way everyone seems to be describing it. So right sizing your operation, which means assets, it means people, it means process, it means all those things to carry you at least through this quarter. And then beyond that, to take advantage of a lot of the programs that the government has put in place. I strongly recommend that, and you may already be taking the initiative with your banks and your other lenders to take advantage of those government programs that have been put in place for liquidity purposes, so that they can carry you essentially through this period moving forward. And again, as we do move forward, and should this be for extended periods of time, taking advantage of those programs will surely help you move forward. So what are we doing with this challenge? We are engaging, again, every major supplier that we have, working with their corporate teams, and we're looking for every concession possible to take advantage of over the next periods for our customer base, and to help, obviously help this customer base survive the next quarter and beyond, and to really operate as efficiently as possible, through that period.
Great, thanks, Rob. Appreciate that perspective. We've already started to touch on this. I'd like to turn our focus on kind of getting these things solved. I'd like to talk about what Corcentric is doing, literally to help manage supplier relationships on behalf of buyers. Folks that are trying to work from home, managing their entire fleet supplier portfolio here. And Rob, I'll turn back to you. I understand that Corcentric has a little over 160 specific programs that are negotiated and ready to go. What sort of time savings, or what sort of labor savings will sourcing managers find when they look at the Corcentric program versus working directly with a supplier? How is that going to help that sourcing person trying to manage their programs from the kitchen table?
So bottom line is, our goal when we establish relationships with our suppliers, and quite frankly, I look at it as a portfolio. When we establish this portfolio, what we want to do is drive the decision tree down to just 2 or 3 questions from a very elaborate process. And so what I mean by that is, essentially, we vet out the suppliers, we establish the processes that Bill McCouch had talked to, as far as enrollment processes, billing processes, ordering processes, engagement with local distributors that represent these suppliers, dealers, and so on. All that process has already been established, is in place. So you take a very complex decision tree down to just 2 or 3 questions. And those 2 or 3 questions are essentially, do I need the product or service? Which supplier or suppliers should I engage first? And then just simply engaging us as far as enrolling in those programs. And that's really it. From then forward, you begin to realize the value of the products and or services immediately, within days, literally within days, and taking advantage of those products or services in your business. It's really that quick. And that's what's going to save you a tremendous amount of time. And really, in the end, what you want to do is for your business to move forward and be taking advantage of these products or services, so that you ultimately accomplish what you do as a business, and not spend all of your time engaging various suppliers, agreements, credit terms, and all those things that have already been done for you.
All right, that sounds great, Rob. Thank you for that. Bill, I'd like to turn back to you for some final thoughts here on the subject of effective supplier management. Having visibility into, I think you mentioned, over 1,600 fleets with whom you work on a procurement basis here. What sort of efficiencies or time savings are we bringing to the picture when it comes to enrolling in one of your supplier programs, getting set up with a national account, getting a line of credit to purchase from those programs, and then finally getting set up to manage your billing electronically rather than needing to be in a physical office to handle invoices and whatnot. So what kind of savings on time, and what sort of benefits are we bringing the fleet manager that wants to onboard a program from home?
Well, so from the way we look at it is cycle time, And what we like to do is we like to establish a line of credit. Oftentimes that's done, in a matter of hours. We don't ask for financials. We don't ask for interims, and so forth. So we typically establish a line of credit quickly. We then, get a customer filling out some of the agreements, which, takes a few minutes, which essentially is some non-disclosure agreements. Once you get that filled out, then we give you access to our buyer's guide. And essentially, it's kind of the keys to the kingdom. You literally can go shopping through our programs at your leisure or with the assistance of one of our staff members. At that point, you simply pick and choose, and we can do the enrollment, or frankly, you just click a button, and we start the enrollment process and the workflows and all that other stuff. So, a typical turnaround time for a tire program would be about 7 days, and for an OE parts program, somewhere around 2 weeks to get someone enrolled and up and running. So that's pretty good turnaround time to get someone engaged with the program. With regards to things like the supplier relationships and so forth, this is one where it actually falls back on the relationships that you've built in the past. You have the regional relationship, and as Rob said earlier, we have the corporate or the national relationship. And I say that because, frankly, with the demands that are put on the trucking industry today, the end user buyers really don't have time to discuss the supply side, and that's real. In a recent survey with our customers, we had those discussions with them, and frankly, some of the ones I've spoken with are actually doing double duty. Some are doing fleet maintenance along with assisting in logistics. One customer hauls for the food industry, and big box retail said, every day anymore seems like it's Christmas week. A few other carriers told me they're actually turning down loads while others can't find backhauls out of hotspot areas. So logistics has become quite a problem, and so a lot of the fleet managers and buyers are actually doing double duty on the logistics side of things. So the supplier relationships, if you've established them in the past, they should remain pretty solid through this time of crisis. So it may be a little strained right now, at the local level, but rest assured, at a national level and a corporate level, we got your back.
Understood. Thanks, Bill. Before we wrap up here, I did want to turn our attention to just the broader portfolio of programs that Corcentric offers. So we've certainly addressed our fleet-specific programs, tires, parts, lubricants, and whatnot. So, Bill, could you kind of clarify what else Corcentric can do as far as the pre-negotiated programs outside of fleet, and some of what those categories are, and how an enrollment process would work with some of these non-fleet specific supplier programs?
Well, to ask you or to answer the question with regards to categories, pretty much if you look around yourself right now, almost everything that you see, we have a capability in. So it could be your computers, your peripherals, your furniture, your lighting, just really anything that you need to operate your shops, anything you need to keep your trucks running, and anything you need to keep your office and environment running. So there, too many categories to mention, but with over 160 programs, we cover the entire gambit, including things for inside the warehouse, like materials handling and so forth. So, but again, great question. It's often overlooked in an area that has a huge potential to reduce costs, which is all your indirect spend. Some statistics out there say that 10% of your gross sales are related to indirect spend. So a company that is a billion-dollar company, 10% of that's a big number, but it is often overlooked. So when it comes to direct spend and all that other stuff, all that stuff, there's pretty tight controls on, right? All that stuff is usually centralized, and it's really guided by strict protocols in who to buy from, what to buy exactly, where, and all that. But when it comes to indirect spend, the purchases are really related to day-to-day type of operations. And those controls we find are very much disorganized. So it's the least managed, aspect of procurement, but it can have a tremendous impact on your overall bottom line. So, I highly encourage companies to, take a look at our buyer's guide, and you could look there as to what is available. But then again, you got to understand that we would like to be your trusted advisor. So simply contact us. Again, no cost to enroll, participate, get access to. We'd like to be your trusted advisor in that area to help you contain cost and see all of us through this problem time.
Thanks, Bill. So billing for these programs, would that work the same as fleet? I mean, is there a certain amount of simplicity that Corcentric brings to the procurement manager's role in general as far as managing their invoices and payments? Let's say that they do want to work with fleet programs and indirect programs that their businesses need right now. Are we simplifying that overall billing picture for them?
Well, the purchasing of products and goods and all that is also very manual. It's very decentralized. It's fragmented. There's little management oversight in this area, and it really can wreak havoc on your finances as well as your administrative staff. Processing invoices for Post-it notes and paper clips, that's probably not the best use of someone's time. So you really want to centralize all of that and interface with electronic information and not paper invoices. So processing all your transactions in the same portal that you would process your tires, your parts, your oil, your uniforms, the same portal where you go on, you approve, dispute transactions, right online in a seamless processing environment. That's where your real savings are going to come from.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill. Appreciate that perspective. So as we draw today's webinar to a close, a final word on how Corcentric is helping fleets to manage risk and disruption through the COVID-19 crisis. Today, we identified three main areas impacted: cost management, asset management, and supplier management. Corcentric's Capital Equipment Solutions team stands ready to assist any fleet with lifecycle strategy, equipment acquisition, and total cost of ownership analysis. Corcentric's fleet procurement team also stands ready to assist fleets with a full spectrum of fleet supplier programs ready to go, as well as a portfolio of other indirect spend programs that fleets need to operate their business. And finally, Corcentric's remarketing team stands ready to help equipment owners to make smart decisions about their used equipment and to deliver optimal outcomes for used equipment buyers and sellers in today's environment. Taken together, Corcentric's fleet solutions teams can truly help fleets across the full life cycle of equipment operations. I'd like to extend my thanks to our subject matter experts on today's webinar, Pat Gaskins, Dale Tower, Bill McCouch, and Rob Garcia. From what we heard today, it's clear you have a great passion for helping fleets see themselves through the tragic events currently touching all of our lives, both personally and professionally. Contact information for our fleet experts is provided here, and I believe I speak for all of our participants in encouraging listeners to get in touch. Be it questions from today's webinar, an interest in one of Corcentric's fleet solutions, or really a need for advice on any problem facing your fleet right now, our experts want to help you during these difficult times. On behalf of the entire Corcentric family, thank you for listening. We wish you, your family, and your fleet good health as we hold a tenacious grip on the hope for better days ahead. Take care.